Hello YouTube and welcome back. AT's Diary of a Cover Band Guitar Player rolling into, I believe this is the fourth episode, if you will. It's a Friday night, Cinco de Mayo, and I am outside the venue where I'm going to play tonight, and our acoustic opener is in there playing right now. A man that's played at this bar, I guess, every Friday night, save maybe one or two for the past 30 years. Again, I still don't really know my target demographic here. I don't know who all is watching or who's going to watch, but if you're just checking it out for the first time, I'm AT, and I have been a cover band guitar player for many, many years, 20 plus, closer to 25. I have been involved in original projects here and there as well, but my specialty is mostly cover band, tribute band type work, and I talk a lot about what it takes to get out there in the cover band scene and to do a good job, book shows, be a professional, be as good as you can be on your game, because the cover band circuit, depending on where you live, can be very lucrative. Some folks can make a living off it if they're lucky enough. I'm not quite there yet, but maybe if I threw the hammer down I could be, but you know, that's life. Tonight I wanted to talk to you a little bit about equipment. One of my viewers suggested that I talk about how much equipment matters, and do you have to have the most expensive name brands out there in equipment to sound great and to do a good job? And the answer to that is an unequivocal no. What you need is reliable equipment. It doesn't matter what the name is on the headstock, it doesn't matter what the name is on the bass drum, what the name is on whatever it is you play. Maybe you play the ukulele, hell, I don't know. It doesn't really matter the name on it. It has a lot to do with how well you do with it, but how reliable the essential components of it are. Right now, we live in an era where there are a lot of import guitars in the market that are very good, and there are now Epiphones rivaling actual Gibsons. Paul Reed Smith's SE line was the pioneer for making import guitars compete head-to-head with those in the American market. And I believe that the Paul Reed Smiths were also instrumental in getting Epiphone to finally get their shit together and start turning out guitars that had usable pickups and that had consistent quality control. There was once upon a time the Les Paul Custom was the top of the line Epiphone, and the pickups were fucking unusable. I mean, nothing but a squeal fest, microphonic, pure junk. They gave you the tiny little dime-sized volume and tone pots inside, garbage wiring. The finishes weren't all that great by comparison to Gibson. That has changed a lot. The standard line SGs and Les Pauls now, they've finally gotten the quality control up to par. And if you are playing an Epiphone nowadays, you have every reason not to be embarrassed anymore about it. They've even spruced up the ugly headstock. The original Epiphone headstock looked like it belonged on John Lennon's hollow body and not on a Les Paul or an SG. It was like taking a five-star cuisine plate and putting a McDonald's Diet Coke in the middle of it. Just didn't fit. But they've gone through and they've revamped it, and it looks a lot more Gibson-esque. I have the 1959 reissue Epiphone Les Paul that is as Nigel would say from Spinal Tap, is at the top of the heap. It is at the top. I would choose it over Gibson Les Paul Studio. I would choose it well over the Gibson Les Paul Tribute. It is a magnificent guitar in every manner of speaking. It has Gibson USA Burst Bucker 2 and 3 pickups. It has Mallory capacitors that are period correct. It has CTS pots that are the size of quarters and not the dime-sized Chinese junk. It has nice heavy wiring inside it. It has Switchcraft switches. It has a Graphtec nut. It has a Tone Pros bridge. The tailpiece is not shitty pot metal. The only thing that I think is, a compromise that they really didn't address fully about the guitar, well, maybe the Indian Laurelwood fingerboard is a cheaper wood, but a nice wood nonetheless. And what they did, as opposed to doing a nitrocellulose lacquer finish like a Gibson, which is a feature you find on more expensive guitars, and Epiphones are typically a nice, shelly, bright polyurethane, They did what they call like a vintage satin finish on it. It's a very thin polyurethane, so it doesn't have the luster of poly. It looks more like nitrocellulose lacquer. That being said, you can also get on Amazon. Guitars will rival a lot of American guitars. Actually, a Pearl Export drum kit, if you put good heads on it, whether you like Aquarians or Remos and you know how to tune them, you can take an import drum set and make it sound good. You can take import amplifiers and make them sound good. I do not run an actual amplifier on stage anymore. It took me years to get there. Sometime I will show you my stage rig and explain it in detail, but I use a powered 1000 watt 1x8 headrush guitar monitor, and I use a modeler with a tube preamp driving the front of it. And I use a Marshall JCM 800 tone patch as my primary rock and roll sound. And I set the modeler at about 40 to 50% gain, so it just gets a little bit of breakup. And then I relinquish the rest of the overdrive to the tube preamp. I use an Art Studio V3. I guess I wouldn't call it a vocal preamp because it's a multi-instrument preamp. So what do I do to make that more guitar friendly? Well, one of the biggest flaws with these, or the Behringer Mic 200 preamp, which is a direct ripoff of the Art, it's just in a more crude package and doesn't have a fancy VU meter, old style, with a needle on the front of it. A 12AX7 tube has a gain factor of 100. It is too hot most of the time for these preamps to be used on guitars. It generates hiss and it generates extra distortion that you don't necessarily want. That is easily solved. What do we know about 12 volt dual triode tubes like the 12AX7? Well, there's also the 12AT7, which has marginally less gain. There's the 5751, which is in between the 12AX and the 12AT7. At the bottom of the 12 volt dual triode tubes on the gain scale, we have the 12AU7, also known as the 5841A. This tube has a gain factor, if memory serves me correctly, of either 40 or 50. It's roughly half the gain factor of a 12AX7. So what does that mean? That means all the warmth, none of the noise, and not a bunch of excess distortion from the tube if you don't want it. So what I do is I set my tone patch to about 50% gain, to where it's just got kind of a Malcolm Young breakup. Then I engage the 20 dB boost on the valve setting on the Studio V3 with the gain and level set at 12 o'clock. And it provides the most realistic feeling, responding tube sound and feel. And it will make some of the more digital modelers sound and feel like an analog amplifier. So that being said, I stopped using amps, but I have used all kinds of different amps. You don't need a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier half stack. You do not need a Marshall JCM 2000 full stack to sound good. Actually, less is more when you're playing these smaller clubs. You want your sound man to be able to mix you. And if you're so fucking loud with your stage volume, your sound man's going to have a hell of a time mixing you. You're either going to be on top of the mix or buried in it, because he's not going to know where to put you. Gone are the dinosaur days of we got to have it on 10, we got to have it loud. Bullshit. That if you're outdoors and you want to bring some big stuff and crank up just because you want to feel it, fine. But nowadays you have to understand sound equipment, sound reinforcement equipment, like mains and subwoofers. Things that you would mic up your instruments with have gotten smaller, they've gotten lighter, they've gotten louder, they've gotten more detailed, they've become more controllable. And when you have that kind of technology at your fingertips, there is absolutely no reason for you to be totally guitarded. There is no reason for you to be the loudest person on that stage. Your level needs to be in the mix, not on top of the mix, not buried in the mix, but in the mix, where it belongs. And I suggest you start using in-ear monitors. And if you don't use in-ear monitors, learn to rely on your wedge stage monitor for your sound and feel on stage, so you produce a very clean front of house mix. So your equipment has to be reliable first and foremost. It doesn't have to be the most expensive stuff. Squier vintage, not vintage modified, Squier's, what's the Classic Vibes series. I would play any Classic Vibes Squier over a Fender made in Mexico standard model any day. I own some Classic Vibes Squier stuff. It is not the junk Squier that took over mass production and was peddled in Sam Goody's and Musician's Friend. The Classic Vibe series is an ode to the original Japanese import Squiers that would compete head-to-head with Fenders. And if you notice, the price point for the Squiers has gone up because they, like everyone else, had their pants pulled down by people like Paul Reed Smith with the SE line. And no longer can you turn out junk. There are lots of import guitars that make wonderful platforms for modifications, and there are many that you don't have to touch a damn thing on, and they sound great. Speaking on the drum issue as well, I have known many drummers who were good with their ears. They could tune, they knew good tone, and they would take something like a Tama Swingstar, Rockstar, or a Pearl export kit with either Aquarian heads, Remo heads, some nice head, tune them really well, and their drums sounded wonderful. I had a friend that had actually a former drummer, he had a Pearl Session Customs kit that sounded better than his Master's Custom kit, and the Session Custom kit was one level down. I wouldn't call it a low-end kit at all, but it was one level down. Also, it is crucial for you, if you are in a cover band and getting paid to play, that you have redundancy and backup. You carry 2 amplifier rigs with you wherever you go. You carry more than one guitar. You carry extra strings. You carry a toolkit on the road that has extra strings, a string winder, screwdrivers, Allen wrenches, maybe even a soldering iron. Hell, I mean, I have that. But you carry 2 guitar straps. You carry 2 of everything, so when your system goes down, you and your guitar tech, your sound guy, or you can get back up and running easily. So reliable equipment, redundancy, keeping your equipment, you need to change your guitar strings to the best of your ability with your skin oils. Some guys can ruin a set of guitar strings in 1 show, 2 shows, because they have really acidic skin oil. Some guys can touch a guitar and an hour later the strings are rusting. Those guys, it is worth every penny for them to use a long life string like an Elixir. I will tell you that on acoustic guitar, there is no other string to run than an Elixir if you're a busy cover band musician. I run Elixir 8020 Phosphor Bronze when I play acoustic in 12s, and when I can afford on my electric, I will run Elixir strings as well in 10. I like 11, but not all nuts like to take the thickness of the 11s. I run 10s. Now, I will tell you that if I run Elixirs, even as bendy and aggressive of a guitar player as I am, I have gotten up to 20 shows out of a set of Elixir electrics. 20. 2-0. And the only reason I changed them after that was out of fear. I like to play Diodario strings. I feel like they are the best non-coated, non-long life string out there. They're a bargain. They sound great. If I have to settle and it's all I can get, the bare minimum I'll go is the Ernie Ball regular Slinky. I didn't mind GHS boomers so much when they were around, but I got a really bad batch. I got a case one time that just the string breakage rate was off the charts, and I haven't run them since. Used to be Dean Markley Blue Steels were popular. I think those are the worst string for sounding wonderful 1 second and then losing all of their luster the next. I guess the overarching message here is reliability. Change your drum heads, change your strings. As for your guitar cables, you need to have redundancy. Always have backups, have many cables. I don't necessarily buy into the bullshit that the champagne and crackers guitar players that indulge in self-created prophecy and self-declared importance will tell you about, you got to have monster cables, you got to have the most expensive gold-plated, because in my mind, I pretend that my brain's an oscilloscope and I can hear when it's a microhertz of blah, 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 bullshit. But you don't want to play cheap shit either. You don't want to play total junk either. A good mid-grade cable, many of them, will serve you well. Picking a good wireless. You don't have to have the most expensive wireless, but don't settle for the cheaper one either. And in-ear monitor systems, I have used a Carvin system for years. I had about 12 years of hassle-free, error-free service out of it, and mine just started acting up last year. And I was getting an odd shh, and I haven't really had time to mess with it. So I did have a cheaper system that I had bought on Amazon for like $200. I think it was a Xenix Pro. And I bought it as a backup, as an emergency backup. And I've been using it for about over a year now. And it only recently, the last 2 shows, started giving me some trouble. But triple driver earbuds will take even the cheaper in-ear monitors and make them sound good. And again, I spent $399 on a pair of Westone earbuds that sucked ass compared to these $29 right here, these triple driver, I think they're called KZs, on Amazon. I swear to you, these things outsound a lot of earbuds that are $400, $500, $600. You should buy 2 or 3 pairs because, every couple of years you might tear them up and you need to replace them. But as a matter of fact, I think these sound better than some 4-driver buds. I can put drums in my ear. I can put bass in my ear. They sound good. So equipment, what you're comfortable with, what is reliable, always have a backup in place and get out there and have fun. Don't worry about it. So there's my little tidbits of knowledge for you. I'm AT, and it's been a pleasure being with you. Hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Tell your friends about it. As this grows, I don't know where it'll go. Hopefully it'll get better and better as I learn who my audience is. This is a new thing yet. So have a wonderful and safe weekend, folks. Take care.